Okie dokie.
Perfect. Hi guys, welcome to our Trio Student Support Services Study Skills number 1. We will be covering 3 main areas that we know as students. We like a little bit more tips and tricks from other students like myself. My name is Jocelyn. I am the Trio Student Support Service Office Assistant. So you guys will get to see plenty of me around the office. So first one is study smart. Can any of you guys tell me what you think it means to study smart?
I guess like studying at a good time, not staying up late to study, like staying up till 12, and midnight, like, I don't know, find the time like during the day and a nice, quiet environment that allows you to focus and relax on what you're actually studying on, and also just having, I guess the right equipment equipment you could say for your studying.
Perfect, thank you. So where and when is the main question we usually get. When do you study? Where do you study? Choosing a good place. Maybe for some of us it might be our bedroom or our kitchen, our living room. Maybe for some of us it might be our Trio office or the youth center library or even just at Starbucks. It just depends on everyone and how they learn. Having everything you need, like you mentioned, having the right equipment for it. Making sure that you carry your highlighters, your pencils, the books you have required to read, whatever printouts you might need, all that you need to make sure that you're prepared and ready to go with those. Eliminate distractions. I know we live with our phones in hand all the time, but when you're studying, the best thing to do is either put it on Do Not Disturb or just simply set it aside where you won't be tempted to grab it and just mess around with it. Because I know seeing our Snapchat notifications or Instagram notifications might be a temptation for us to just wander off, kind of going onto social media for an hour or two and then forget about our assignments. Study plan, like you mentioned, just making sure that you kind of lay it out. If you use an agenda, jot it down. Okay, I need to study for this exam. Study for this exam every day. Even if it's just 15-20 minutes that you study, that's more than enough time if you're doing it 2 weeks in advance, a week in advance. Just finding that right area that fits your schedule the most. Getting started. I know that most of us, all it takes is for us to sit down and actually start doing something for us to feel motivated, because most of the time if we have our phones, we're like, oh, I'll just do it later, or I'll just do it in an hour or two, like first time watch this Netflix show. Just making sure that we get started when we say we're going to get started on that. Organizing your study time. Make a plan, like I said. Even if it's not just putting it into your agenda, but actually just sitting down and being like, okay, so for 15 minutes, I'm going to review chapter 1. The next 15 minutes, chapter 2. Chapter 3 might not be that long, so I can do 10 minutes of that. Just kind of knowing what time frame you want to stay within in order to review accordingly. Break large assignments down. If you have, let's say, an essay due, do the introduction one day, do the body paragraph another day, the conclusion another day. And that way you can also work with our tutors to get those revised and kind of guide you in a path where you know you'll succeed in your classes that way. Alternate types of work. I know for a lot of times we might be taking science classes or math classes, and with those, with math you do a lot of work problems, while with science it's mostly like reading your biology textbook or reading your OChem notes, whatever it might be. Just making sure that if you're going to be reading one assignment, don't jump into another reading assignment, because a lot of the time you lose focus within those transitions. You're like, oh, I don't want to continue reading, I'm tired, my eyes hurt. By going from reading to math to reading again, It allows you to refocus and just kind of maintain that concentration level that you need in order to study correctly and in order for you to memorize all of these vocab words or whatever it might be that you need for that exam. Another thing, taking breaks. I know that you want to get everything done in 2-3 hours, but at the same time, if you're getting everything done in those 2-3 hours, is it really benefiting you? Yeah, you might be getting it done quickly, but you'll be tired by the end of it. You'll probably just want to take a nap right after instead of reviewing maybe one last time. If you take breaks, it can even be like a bathroom break, just getting up, stretching your arms, stretching your legs, getting a snack, getting a drink. They don't have to be very long in that sense. Just 5-10 minutes, get right back to work. Also, having snacks with you will help you concentrate more. It's just the way essentially our mind works in a sense, that if you prolong it for such long hours, it's not going to give you the same energy level. Tips and tricks that I have personally gotten to know about throughout like my past 2.5 years here. Having at least one classmate's number. I know that a lot of times we might be shy and don't really talk, just go to lecture, go back home type of thing. But just having that one person that if you miss a class, you know you can ask for the notes. Or if you don't understand something, you can always ask them questions. Also, visiting your professor's office hours is a good idea. Completing essays and discussion boards early, like I said, so you have enough time to edit and revise them and even have a tutor look over them. Study groups. For science, for example, I know that's a huge thing, just simply because it's a lot easier for 5 brains to work together than for you to try and do it all on your own. Tutoring, utilize our services. I can't express it enough. Even if you think, like, oh, I'm gonna get an A, just having that one other person quiz you on certain stuff might make you realize, like, oh, I should probably study that a little bit more. Or, okay, I got this down, I can focus more on this section. Just utilizing that, and also utilizing not only our tutors, but your friends. Reviewing the content. Don't look over your notes and just kind of try and memorize them. Actually review them, get to understand the concept. Get to understand what it really means and what lessons you're trying to get out of it. Because if you just memorize it for the exam, it's really not going to be all that useful. Memorization strategies. How many of you guys have attempted to memorize stuff for classes? For what class?
Bio, human anatomy.
What type of memorizing have you been trying?
Well, I took it a year ago. For Bio 202, you don't really need to memorize a lot of stuff. You need to know like functions of like the heart and this and that. And I would try to memorize, and it doesn't really work that well memorizing. You need to actually know the topic. I don't know how else to explain it.
I know one of the things I did for actually about 202, which I took last semester, for like the lab portion, you do have to like remember actually a lot of little things that we had to label. But like on the power slides they give us, how I was like the parts labeled in the body, I would go and click on this one thing, I don't know what, but I would like cover each labeled section, and I would just leave the line shown, like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then I would like go, I would remember what each line was that it was pointing to, and then I would cover it, and then I would like go through it, like, okay, that's this, that's that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, kind of like creating your own diagram in a sense.
Well, I guess just, not really creating my own, but just covering up the word that's there.
Oh,
Fill
okay.
in the blank type of thing.
Yeah, sort of like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That actually really helped me, and I did that for Bio 201, because I had to retake it. I got a D the first time, so I got retook it using that strategy, I got an A, so.
Yeah, memorizing can work in a lot of instances, like for example, yours. I know for vocab, that's mainly where we do utilize it, and that's why we're trying our best to cover this aspect of it. But strategies, use all of your senses, look at it, say it, write it down. If you just simply skim over your notes, you're not gonna memorize it, no matter how many times you look over them. If you look at them, say them, and then rewrite what they mean, or like key words that might help you remember, that's the way it's gonna work the best, kind of what you did in a sense. Logical connections, for example, when we were younger, when it came down to pie charts, what would they usually tell us? Remember, it's either a pizza or a pie, making kind of those connections. Creating acronyms, we have a lot of those in college for any class. We are Sun Devils. ARE stands for something. Can you guys actually tell me what ARE stands for? Engagement. Good job. Review often. So just because you take down the notes doesn't mean you don't get to review them until the day of the exam or the night before. Actually, the very next class, try to go back and review both the notes for the previous class and the class that you just took. Tips and tricks, index cards work great. Review before going to bed. I know a lot of my professors usually tell us this. Like, review before going to bed, and by bed I don't mean midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., the day of the exam. I mean at the latest 10:30 p.m. Because it just allows your brain to process the information you just took in and just kind of actually make a memory note of it. Don't pull all-nighters trying to memorize these. Please, please, please. Actually get your rest. That's what's going to help you for exams. Taking tests. How many of you guys have anxiety when it comes down to taking tests? Yeah, most definitely. We've all been there. I still get them, given I've taken hundreds of tests by now. But before the test, get a good night's rest, have breakfast or lunch before the class, have all your materials ready. If you know the professor prefers you using a black pen over a blue pen, having that ready to go, or a pencil over pen. Review one last time, just kind of look over your notes at this point, take down whatever information you really know that it's going to for sure be on the exam. Beginning of the test, write down any notes at the top corner. I know that for a lot of classes you might need to remember a formula. If you reviewed it right before class and you have it fresh on your mind, you can just jot it down at the very corner of your exam or quiz. That way you know for sure you won't forget it once you have already started your exam. Determine how you want to complete the exam. And by this, it's kind of skimming through exam and checking what type of questions there is and what approach you want to do it. If you know it takes you longer to do the essay questions, you might want to start with those instead, because usually those are the ones that earn you the most points. Determine the amount of time you have per section and try to stay within that time frame. If you know the professor only gives you an hour to do the exam, dividing that hour up into each section, depending on how long each section takes you. During the test, determine the types of questions. Multiple choice questions usually don't take very long, but that, as the handout says, don't look at the answers first. Look at the question, try to answer it in your head, and then look at the multiple choice answers. True or false questions. Also, just try, with those, it's a little bit trickier, just simply because you got 50-50 chance, but just kind of, usually those are based off of the multiple choice questions, or at least for most of my experience, that's how it usually has been. So you might want to look into making sure that that's not the case for the essay questions. Those usually take the longest, those usually give you the most points, so making sure that you answer every section of it. Ask for clarification if needed, especially with science courses. I know that sometimes they can get wordy or a little bit longer than you expected them to be. Just asking if you don't understand something. End of the test, check your answers and make sure you've answered every section and every question. I know that as you're going, you might just get into a flow and you might miss a question. Just making sure you go back and revise that everything has been answered. Do you guys have any questions for me? Yes.
Do you have any suggestions on most, since I've been here, and maybe it's just because the classes I've been in, most of my tests and quizzes have been online. Any tips or suggestions?
For online,
Yeah, for
exams?
preparing, or for like you had said about, I mean, obviously you can't necessarily look ahead to the end of it, so any suggestions as far as like the timing of it?
yes, so making sure that, I know that for those, usually most of them will be multiple choice questions. Just making sure that you don't get stuck on questions, like let's say that you have, let's say 30 questions in 45 minutes.
Okay.
You know, you have about 1.5 minutes per question.
Yeah.
If you're taking longer than that, maybe if it's an open book, I know that for my situation, they've always been open book whenever they're online exams. Just having index cards with like key concepts that you know might be like a difficult subject for you. That's always worked in my case, so that's maybe a tip.
Okay.
Yes.
I actually got this information from one of my students that I just met today in my meeting, and I never thought of this, especially an online course, and it was the professor that was actually giving her this suggestion. Depending on how long the exam is, the quiz, in her case, the quizzes are not just an hour or so, it's like it's opened up and then it's not due until like the next day or whatever.
Sounds like my ethics, the ethics class I took.
So the professor is saying, go in, like you're starting the quiz, look at all the questions, get out, utilize that as a study guide,
I tried that one time.
go back in and then you do it.
Yeah, I tried that one time and it must have only been set for it must have only been set to like let us do it once, because I ended up having to get the teacher to give me like basically
Gotcha.
reopen it for
So that's
me.
where you just have to be careful on.
Because
I know like with my graduate, when the student just told me earlier today, I was like, wow, why didn't I think about that? Because my graduate work, it actually states it right there that, you can save it and you can come back in, because it gives me enough, like, not just an hour, it gives me like a day or two. So, and her professor actually, and this is an undergrad course that this student had just shared to me, and I'm like, wow, that's a pretty nice professor to let you know how to work around that.
Yeah, my ethics professor, like for the actual tests, like for the final, for instance, the final was actually, it was an in-person class, but the final was on, like the midterm and the final were online. He opened it the week before the final was due. You had in addition to whatever else was going on in the class, you had from like the day he opened it. So it would be like, he'd open it before class, like before class one day. You had till the beginning of class, like a week from that day to do it. But yeah, I think even his, you could only get into it once.
So once you log in, you log in.
basically, once you get in, you had
Right.
to take, yeah. Because because that was when I had a teacher that did that, that was my first thought too, but then I saw that, no, it's only set to be taken one time, it's like,
Gotcha.
done,
We'll read the fine print
yeah.
on that. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, well,
I just thought that was a good idea.
Yeah.
Also, when
Oh,
my
yeah.
student gave it to me today, I was like, wow, I didn't even think about that. So, David?
It tells you on the top too, when you go into it, but you don't hit begin, it
Right.
says right there, once you get in, you can't get out.
Right.
If you get out,
Yeah.
that's it, that's the
And that's
score
where
you
with my
get.
graduate,
Yeah,
that's where I read mine. And all of mine was always like, you can go in, go back out. You
yeah.
can save it, but just make
Like
sure you get it
ethics.
done before that.
Yeah,
date.
If there's a social work classes like that, you
Mm-hmm.
do online, they won't let you come back, you gotta stay in there.
Yeah.
Once you're in there,
I've had a couple that I didn't think to do it on those, but I've had a few where it would it would allow you multiple attempts, like the syllabus quiz I just had for my internship class. You had like you said, it was you had a week and a half to do it or so, but she only set it for multiple attempts because she wanted everyone to get to as close to full points as possible.
Right.
The funny thing is, she actually had it set wrong
Oh, that's not going to be helpful.
because she had it set it was supposed to be. It was 10 questions, but she had it worth 25 points.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any other questions or maybe tips that you guys have used?
Another one for the studying for an exam was from our academic boot camp, that when you're looking at your textbooks and reading through it, in the back of the chapter normally has like the review questions. That's also very helpful, the review questions, or even like a summary. Normally, the very last paragraph is like the conclusion of like the whole chapter. That also helps to kind of refresh your memory on all that stuff too. Any other questions?
Not a question, but I've got a suggestion that worked. It worked, strangely enough, it worked better for the midterm in this class than it did the final, but, no, I had a class where she didn't, because like you said, I wanted to start the studying, to knowing how comprehensive it would be. I wanted to start the studying like a week and a half to 2 weeks in advance, but she hadn't given us the study guide yet. Because anyway, so I ended up making my own, and then sure enough, probably half of 3/4 of what she had on hers, which she did give us the week, she gave to us the week of the exam, was also on the one I had made. It would have worked better for the final, would have worked decently for the final, except I didn't realize there was a couple of things that on the test she'd emphasized more than I thought she would. Oops.